Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're talking about episode 7 of A Condition Called Love. If I had to pick a way to describe this episode, I think the term I would use is sweet and sour, because we go from some of the sweetest things happening to some of the most dire and just outright diabolical things happening within the levels of what that could mean in a show like this, back to some of the sweetest stuff we've seen in the entire season. It was a really crazy roller coaster ride, and it really jumbled me around a bit. I really felt for Hotaru in this episode because she got totally taken for a loop. I mean, at the end of last episode, she's sitting there, she's confessing her feelings to Hananoi, she's still kind of freaked out and confused about everything that's going on, and then he comes in this episode and he is like, well, do you feel the same as me? And it's like, what the hell does that even mean? Because, I mean, I totally agree with her friend, although, as I said in previous discussions, I didn't necessarily fully trust the girl, but I mean, she does have a definite point when she says that love does mean different things to different people, because almost every emotion means different things coming out of different people's mouths. Because people interpret different emotions differently. When it comes to love, there are actually, like, psychologically explained different types of love languages that people can have and everything. Love can be an incredibly personal and very distinct thing, and one of the key things you have to deal with when you deal with the idea of loving or being in love with someone is the idea that different people will interpret that differently, and you need to either understand how the other person interprets and reacts to it, or you need to find someone who actually shares your values consciously so that you can find someone who can meet your needs. That is actually really important. I enjoyed the fact that we got to meet Hananoi's grandmother, and that we actually got to see flashbacks of what I would presume was his grandfather. It was really interesting seeing this elder generation who had clearly taken the time to love and raise him to the best of their ability. I really felt for those two because, like, obviously they went through a lot trying to help him and be there for him, but they couldn't replace actually having the time and attention of his mom and dad. And it seems like his mom and dad were basically off in their own universe doing their own thing, and like they've never really cared about him. And it's incredibly sad, but it does explain why he feels so much need for attention and why his emotional connection when he cares about somebody is so damned extreme and can be so hot and cold. Like, holy shit. He was so on and off in this episode. It was like, yo, if I was Hotaru, we would not be seeing each other anymore, because there's no way I would put up with that stuff. And that is crazy because I've been defending Hananoi through pretty much the entirety of the series, but the stunt he pulled in this episode was just a gigantic nah for me. Now, I did find it interesting with his grandfather coming around in the flashback and essentially telling him that he needs to find his soulmate since his mom and dad are ignoring him. I don't know how practical that advice was, but then again, I don't necessarily know what other advice the grandfather could have hypothetically given him. I mean, I know there are going to be a lot of people who look at this in a modern context and go, therapy! Therapy! The boy needs therapy. But the thing is, what many people don't realize is that many of the common, more basic things that people go to therapy for now are things that were dealt with by families and communities in the past. I don't mean if somebody has like schizophrenia or something, but so much of the common normal stuff that people go to sit on a couch and talk to a therapist about is something you would have spoken about with your mother, your sister, your brother, your best friend. Any number of people, and we've really lost that community connection, and we've really tried to replace and pathologize that, and that can be incredibly damaging. So while if he's having serious problems and like if he's like acting in ways that are literally psychopathic or something, he might need some kind of intervention. What he probably actually needed was the presence of his mom and dad, and it's absolutely pathetic that they weren't able to do that for him. I mean, they think they're so good and noble going out into the world and doing all this stuff for these people. And that is a good and noble thing, and there should be people who do that. And yet they've done that at the cost of their own son, and that's just twisted, man. I've seen a bit of kickback on the grandfather talking about the idea of soulmates. People arguing it's real, it's not real, it's dangerous, it's an outdated idea, all of that kind of thing. And I ultimately think that any of those kinds of arguments really do miss the point. The point of telling his grandson about the idea of finding a soulmate was to point out to his grandson that somewhere out there is going to be another person who will actually put you as one of the focuses of their life. If not first, because most people in today's world put themselves first, then at least high up on the totem pole and not abandoning and leaving you behind the way that his parents have done to him. Also, I think the idea of a soulmate is a beautiful idea. I don't necessarily think that it means or needs to mean that there is a literal individual hand-selected for you that is incapable of feeling anything for anyone else. I think that you can take the idea too far. But I do think that the idea that no matter who you are, there is someone out in the world that is meant to find and love you is a beautiful idea. I do think you do need to go out looking for that. I think you need to go out and live your life, more importantly. But I don't think that we need to get to this idea where we need to be so cynical or nihilistic or jaded that we're like, soulmates don't exist. Now, I mean, if you really want to go the bitter pill, we can point to the argument that there are scientific documentations that state that it's likely that Western society will devolve into polygamy by 2050, but that is a really dark road, and I don't think we need to go down that here. But overall, I thought the grandfather's introduction was pretty cool, and I thought it was really neat that we see him wearing the earrings. And I wonder whether it's that Hananoi has a pair that are similar, or whether those were passed down to him and that's part of why he wears them. I just thought it was a really interesting touch. The grandmother actually kind of reminded me a great deal of Hananoi in how she was initially so dismissive of Hotaru and so guarded and everything, because Hananoi doesn't seem like he's someone who warms up to people easily, and I would presume that in part that might be actually due to her influence, although she does seem to care about him and he does seem to care about her. I mean, we hear about him demanding that she go to the hospital when she burnt her hand and taking her there. I also like the fact that as we listen to the grandmother talk to Hotaru when they are having the coffee together, that Hotaru is starting to piece together things she's seen about Hananoi where he has been compassionate to other people, despite his statement that he only feels that he is meant to care for a single person. I think that right there, that is a potential negative flaw of the soulmate idea. Because a soulmate certainly doesn't mean you're only supposed to care about one person in the world. It means you and another person form a specific, unique, and intimate bond with each other. It doesn't mean that you do that to the exclusion of everything else in reality. That's taking the idea to too much of an extreme. Then again, we see Hananoi take things to extreme a lot of times. He is, as he pointed out, very intense as a person. It's just the way that he is. He's very moody, and he is very, very driven to react in certain ways to certain things. And oh boy, did we get a good dose of that in this episode, because holy crap, when he did that whole thing where he was like, I don't think we should have lunch together anymore. I don't think we should walk to school together anymore. And like he wasn't showing up to actually like walk her home and stuff. I'm thinking, well, you're a piece of work. You tell her that you want her all to yourself. You tell her you feel this incredible, intense feeling for her, and then you're like, fuck off. Which, yo, what is that? That is just so screwed up. I can understand that it was likely, from his point of view, a way to test whether she would react to not having him around. And I pointed out, I think it was episode 3, where they didn't have a lot of control over that in a situation happened like that, and it did enhance what they were going through and what they were experiencing, but that wasn't something they chose. That was an organic situation that created natural growth. This was, to me, actually the most manipulative and potentially control systemed thing that he's done in the entire show, and this was the one time where I was just like, buddy, if that was me, you would be gone, because that was just screwed up. Of course, Hotaru is not me. Hotaru is a 16-year-old girl, and I do not hold it against her in any way that she missed him, that she ended up texting him first, or any of that kind of thing, because I don't necessarily believe in the idea of keeping scores or a tit for tat sort of situation where she should have deliberately waited for him to call her. I did like how everything wrapped up and how the whole situation got resolved, though. I admire the fact that she actually pointed out to him that she doesn't believe the idea that he only cares about one person, and that she points out that in her worldview, that's not how someone should behave. She doesn't necessarily expect him to immediately adopt her worldview, but she isn't going to instantly adopt his either. And what she says to him is that essentially they need to find a way to coexist and for both of their ideas to be valued. And that was very mature and smart of her, because when one person tries to make another person take up all of their ideas and values and isn't taking anything of the other person's in return, you end up with a really unbalanced mess, and you'll end up with resentment and it won't work out. The way that the episode wrapped up, though, with the kiss at the park and everything, was absolutely adorable. I thought it was too funny when we see the look on her face and just the overall, like the fact that the animation literally makes it look like her body is vibrating. And then he actually kisses her on the forehead. That was a smart move, because that was meeting her more so where she was rather than trying to push things somewhere they did not need to be yet, which I thought was really smart. I also really like how the episode wrapped up in the after credits. Do not forget to check out the after credits. They were fabulous. I love the idea that it shows them waking up the day after in their respective places and texting back and forth, and the fact that they're so excited because now they are actually officially boyfriend and girlfriend. Anyway, I'd love to know what you guys thought of this episode, because I thought it was super great, even though I was a little annoyed at Hananoi for part of it. But I'm assuming we're gonna see a lot of that kind of thing, because these two are the center of the show, which means they're also gonna be the center of the conflict that keeps the plot moving. Anyway, share any thoughts that you have down there in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!